Peace, fam. Thank you for joining me for this edition of Black Politics and Baseline Theory. Let me just say this right off the bat. Yeah, you won't be seeing any movement from my character here. I don't get paid by YouTube, so I'm not trying to lose my job because of my political views. So please try to pay attention to content versus form. As far as I know, this channel is the only channel on YouTube that attempts to approach our situation from a scientific perspective. What does that mean? Well, it means that we not only look at the internal, but we also look at the external. When we look at history, we don't only just look at history, we look at the politics of the moment. And we don't just look at the politics of the moment, we look at the historical context in which those politics exist. This way, we have a better picture of what exactly is going on. And if it was a movie, I guess it would be fair to say that this movie is rated M for mature audiences. The reason I take the time to explain that is because I understand how people take in information. I understand we live in the society where everything has to be explained to us in 2 or 3 seconds. Otherwise, we lose interest and move on. Well, sorry, fam, this can't be explained in 2 or 3 seconds, but I am going to try to explain it as clearly as possible to put us on the right track to help rebuild our baseline of understanding. First, let's look at how we are taught to look at history. We are taught to look at history as like disconnected events through a historical timeline. So on this date, this happened. On that date, something else happened. The March on Washington was on this date. Malcolm X's assassination was on another date. This happened, that happened. And this is how we're taught to view history, as just disconnected events in time. But history for us is really an unbroken line. It exists as one long continuous struggle, more looking like this line below, where you see us having our ebbs and our flows and peaks and our valleys. Sometimes ain't much happening politically at all, but something is always going on, and it's always connected to that which came before it. And it's within this context is how we need to start viewing our history. I want you to listen to these words spoken by our Black Shining Prince, Malcolm X. And then I want you to listen to some words from a government representative many years later.
Using me, I am going to use whatever necessary to get that criminal off my back. And the injustice that has been inflicted upon Negroes in this country by Uncle Sam is criminal. Don't blame a cracker in Georgia for your injustices. The government is responsible for the injustices. The government can bring these injustices to halt.
Okay, so now let's listen to a representative of the government who should have as their reason for even existing is the upliftment and betterment of all people. So let's see what they say in terms of their role and obligation to Black people.
We have launched an all-out offensive against crime, against narcotics, against permissiveness in our country.
The rhetoric of get tough and law and order was part and parcel of the backlash of the civil rights movement.
Nixon administration official has admitted that the war on drugs is all about throwing Black people in jail. He said, quote, the Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and Black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did.
You know, fam, it's one thing if you can't depend on your government for any kind of assistance. Okay, I get that. Okay. But you know, it's another thing totally different if you have a government intent on undermining your existence. We were clear on that to some degree, and we built on that knowledge as we moved ourselves forward through history. But at some point, we became disconnected from our history and our struggle, and we found ourselves trying to reinvent the wheel. And to be clear, this was not clickbait, so I think I'm obligated to let Black people know where we are because that was the name of the topic, right? Where are Black people today? But I'm going to take a two-pronged approach to that. One, I'm going to attach a document or a link to a document on the Urban League that does a state of the Black nation on a yearly basis. They do a lot of good stuff, and they give a very good overview as to the external pressures being applied to Black people. But if you recall before, I said, hey, man, I deal with the internal and the external. So the external pressure, I'm going to let be expressed through that document. But I want to talk about the internal reaction to that, right? And this is important only mostly from a YouTube perspective, because my issue that I'm having in terms of the internal is that we are focused on things that have nothing to do with the external. We are focused on things like, well, a Latino said something bad about Black people, and that's why we can't have no unity with the Latino community. Or look, so Somalian said something about Black people. Oh, look, a Haitian said something bad about Black, and someone will do a reaction video, and someone will do a reaction to the reaction to the reaction video, and we get bogged down, and then somebody will come along and say, yeah, fam, I'm not down with them either, and we got to just be us, and we got to be 10 toes in, and blah, 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 blah. And actually, fam, that is why I'm doing this video, because I'm looking out and seeing other Black folk, like these Black folk here, actually trying to put in some work around issues of concern.
Calvin worked. He is the labor person of the city. You taking away his voice. We voted for him. We voted for him to do the job. So you take away my voice? God didn't like that.
So remember Calvin Duncan? The man who was wrongfully convicted, fought his way out of prison, won an election, and then the Louisiana State Republican legislature tried to erase his position before he could even start? Yeah. Well, a judge temporarily cleared the way for him to serve. And what happened next didn't just complicate the story. It made the pattern a lot harder to ignore. Now follow this closely. Calvin Duncan, after winning 68% of the vote, was officially sworn in as the clerk of criminal court. But before he could serve in that position, the state legislature, controlled by Republicans, passed a law that eliminated his clerk position by combining 4 clerk positions into one and giving that role to someone else. Calvin Duncan didn't give up, though. He sued, and on the eve of when he was to take on the clerkship, a federal judge stepped in and blocked Louisiana's attempt to eliminate his position, saying the move likely violated his constitutional rights. But before he could even serve, the state responded immediately. They appealed, and within hours, a higher court stepped in and froze that ruling.
All right, so let's start with a quick multiple choice question, right? Multiple choice, easy one. Which one should we be more focused on? What's happening in terms of Black and Latino relationships, or should we be focusing on things that are more important to us that have an effect on our daily lives? That's the choice. So A is focus on the Latinos and what they might have said or what they might have done, or B, focus on those who are trying to undermine our very existence. It wouldn't be so bad if the only thing was just focusing on things that were not important, but occasionally you'll actually have people make suggestions that actually work against us. So it's not things that just don't work for us, like worrying about what someone said about it. That's bad enough. But we'll actually encourage the wrong type of activity from Black people. We'll encourage the I'm just going to sit on the couch movement. Or we'll encourage we have to demarcate ourselves from other people, Black people, so that they don't get none of our imaginary reparations turkey. Oh, by the way, and I say that as a person who's 100% for reparations, but I don't want to talk about it right now because I don't want people to get sidetracked. But the way that we're going about it is wrong. I'll just let it go at that. Black people are not monolithic in our thinking, and politics is confusing. Those are just given. But there's a concerted effort to add to that confusion, and that appears mostly online. This sister here said it best. The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. However, we can use these tools online a lot better than what we're using them for. A lot of the online content creators are doing a great job of bringing us information that we might not normally know. However, we need to be able to process information that is informative on one hand, but useful on the other. And we have to separate that information that is useful from that information that is just informative, okay? And we have to not look at people just because they're a content creator as having some political insight unless they really stay on an issue and continue to talk about that issue and not move up to the next issue because, well, that's just how they make their money. And I'm not downing people for making money. I need money. You need money. In fact, I need money. That's why I don't be trying to get fired for my political beliefs because it can happen. Trust me. But anyway, where we're at right now, well, some of us are focused on where we need to be, and others are somewhat confused and floating on a sea of confusion. So anyway, my goal is as much as possible to always approach these things from a scientific perspective and put them in proper context so that we can move forward as a people. Peace.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.